Hey everybody, what's going on? It's James here with Crypto Common Sense, and I have your Bitcoin/cryptocurrency update for November the 22nd. So a whole lot has happened overnight. I was actually woke up a little after 4:30 in the morning my time. My alerts were going off letting me know that Bitcoin had hit some important levels that I had set alerts for. So I jumped up, started looking at the charts, and was a pretty happy camper. So I'm going to talk about what's going on, and I'm going to talk about what I suspect is coming next for Bitcoin and some of the targets that I'm looking for. Before I jump into that content, please do me a huge favor. Go ahead and hit the thumbs up button on this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So first things first, guys. Bitcoin is being very, very giving if you're willing to trade it. If you're hodling, this is going to be a terrible time for you. But if you're trading it, it has been so giving the last 24 hours. We had this cliche line of support. This thing came down, bounced off of this. This is a 5-minute chart. Look at this. It bounced off of this, and just about an hour later was up over 4%. Huge trade. I didn't get it, unfortunately. I had bids set on this line, but when I went to bed, I canceled them. Glad I did, because I would have woke up way underwater or stopped out. But if you were up for this, massive move, almost 4% in like an hour, right? That's a day trader's dream come true. I also was looking to short the 200 moving average in the 5-minute. Again, was asleep, missed it. But if you were watching this, easy 2% trade. Now you might be saying, wait a minute, it went way lower. Yeah, I would have closed it on support, right? If I had gotten in there, I would not have known to hold it that long. I would have got out on support, especially when it moved sideways. So yeah, 4%, 2% trades would have been awesome. I was fortunate enough that I had alerts set, so when it got down to this level, I had bids in at 68.50. It did not get there, but it did set the alerts off when it crossed one of my lines that I had on the chart. It's no longer there. So I woke up, I was able to get into a long position at 7,070. Not ideal. Wanted to be in way down on one of these tails, or at least under 7,000. Got in on the close of the candle here, right around 70.70, right here. And I already closed that. Well, I closed about 90% of that long for a profit, right? Bounced up over 1%, so jumped out of the majority of that. It was just a day trade, nothing more. There was a temptation, right, to say, oh, I'm just going to hold this until it goes up here. But there wasn't actually a setup for that. There was just a day trade setup. And what I suspect is going to happen, one of the reasons that I wasn't interested in holding that trade, is this daily chart is being very intriguing right now. So in yesterday's video, I said I was going to be watching this downward sloping trend line, and this thing looks like it may pay me today. Hopefully, fingers crossed. Look at this, right? Didn't quite get there. That's why my bids didn't fill there at 68.50, but it still may come down. Maybe not, right? Maybe that was the dip. Maybe it's going to move back up from here and have a relief bounce, right? Maybe this was the bottom. Who knows? I don't think it's the bottom, right? I do think it's possible that it has a relief bounce from here and I miss it. If I miss it, fine. But what I'm really waiting for is for it to come down and touch that line. And at the same time, check this out. I talked about this in past videos, but it's been a while. So lots of people have joined the channel since then. So I'm going to re-talk about this, okay? I don't even know if that's a word, re-talk. How about I'm going to talk about this again. Over on Litecoin, I showed that how if you drew a daily trend line from the bottom of 2018 until now, that RSI had followed that trend line the entire last year basically. And Litecoin is often an early indicator for Bitcoin, so Bitcoin often follows Litecoin's lead. So I've been watching this trend line for some time. This trend line started in November 2018, a year ago, right? In fact, November 20th, almost a year to the day. Here was my touch, so now I've got a trend line, and look at this, it's trying to come right back down to that line. And I do suspect that we may get some type of bounce. Ideally, what I would love to see is this RSI touch this line, price touch this line. At the same time, on my 3-day chart, I'd like to see RSI touch the support down here. Again, will it happen? Who knows, right? But if I can get all those things lined up together, then I can enter a sizable long position, right? May even buy back my spot and sell it on the bounce versus doing margin. Margin costs extra fees. Spot, there's no extra fees involved other than just the regular trade fee. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for that setup. And if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. Okay. But 68.50 is what I'm hoping for. All right, and then a bounce from there. Now, you might ask, James, when this thing bounces, how high do you expect it to go? Well, that's a tricky question. There's a lot of different levels that we need to take a look at for a bounce that might happen, okay? The first level that I'm going to be interested in is this level right here, right? Around 7,400. Do not think that's going to be that big of a resistance. If it bounces, I think it'll just chop right through it, right? I think the level that's more important to me is going to be up around the 79.54 level, which used to be support. Now it's flipped resistance, and on top of that, it happens to be right around the area of the 200 daily moving average on the CME chart. So I would be interested in looking for a short position if price makes it to that level. Okay, and again, that's a big if. We don't know what's going to happen. But what I suspect is this thing probably will do something where it comes down. Either this is the low for now, local low, or it comes down a little bit more, maybe 6,700, 6,800, whatever, bounces up here, right? And then moves down. And I suspect the next move will probably take us down into the around $5,000 range, back at this level of support through here, okay? And if that happens, maybe it's late December when this happens, early January. I think we'll get some type of bounce off of there, right? And then a move down finally to this $4,000 area. And you might be wondering, what's this green line? That is the trend line. I've talked about this before, right? That's the trend line. If you draw the trend line through our lows back here, and it happens to line up perfectly in that area with this old gap right here that needs to be filled in. This is basically what I think price is going to do, something along these lines, okay? So super bearish, but I'm not short because I think it would be financial suicide for me to chase a short position when the market is oversold like it is, okay? I do think that we're going to get some type of balance first. Now, what I found super interesting was I went and found a chart that I posted on June 27th, guys. June 27th, right? And I remember getting so much shit over this chart, right? This was the day after the local top, and I was talking about these gaps needing to fill in, and people basically thought I was nuts, right? There was all kinds of goofy comments and whatnot. But look, now a lot of people are calling for the same targets that I was back in June. And this isn't so much about patting myself on the back. It is a little bit. There's a little bit of ego involved in being correct, right? I'm only human. But more so, what I want to point out, guys, is technical analysis, it just works, right? This market is not different from other markets. This market is not special, right? When you hear people saying, oh yeah, but this is Bitcoin, that doesn't work with Bitcoin. Bullshit. Technical analysis works in every market because technical analysis is based on human psychology, and human psychology hasn't changed for thousands of years. We are driven by the same lizard brains that we've been driven by for literally, since we've been on this planet, okay? Greed and fear, greed and fear. So these gaps are sitting down there, and I still suspect they're going to fill in, okay? And again, if we get down to this 4-year trend line, or excuse me, this trend line, that's not the 4-year trend line. If we get down to that trend line, that's going to be right around this $4,100 area in January/February. We'll fill in this gap, okay? And then I would be very interested to look for long positions, okay? Especially if there's some market structure. That would be best case scenarios. We stop there and we start to go back up, okay? If we fall through that level, then we have CME gaps sitting down around $3,500, and I doubt they hold, right? If we fall through this level here, I think we're probably going to go all the way down to the 4-year trend line, which is down, depending on when we hit it. If we hit it, could be down, under $2,000. So that's what that daily chart looks like to me. I'm not even going to talk about this one today. It's just too messy. It's just messy. I don't like it. All right. I do want to talk about the weekly chart real quick. So this is the weekly chart. I'm going to turn RSI off. We don't need it for the video. Keep in mind that what we were watching for was a higher low and higher high type of structure. We got the exact opposite, right? We have high, low, lower high, lower low, lower high, and this is potentially going to be a lower low. The week does not close for another 2.5 days, so a lot can happen. But essentially, unless this pumps up and closes above this yellow line, this is going to be a validated lower low, right? A confirmed lower low, which is very bearish structure. Now the good news is, if you're bullish, is after a lower low, you typically get what? A lower high, right? Well, to get a lower high, you have to move up, right? So I do think that if this closes down around this level down here, maybe gets down here and then closes somewhere in here, I do think we'll get some type of balance, right? And again, this yellow line is right around that 200 daily moving average on the CME, okay? That being said, don't forget that it could spike up, throw a wick up here, right? People will be like, oh yeah, I'm going to short this resistance. It could throw a wick up here, stop all these people out, and then come down, okay? Just like it did over here. If you look at this, it's like, oh my God, how could I not have shorted that? Well, it's because this is 9,500, and I did short it, right? I talked about this lots. But the problem was it didn't throw that damn wick up to 10.5 and stop me out, right? So you got to keep that in mind that they're not going to make it that obvious. It's never that obvious. It's never that easy, right? If it was that easy, everybody would be rich. So yeah, if it gets up there, it probably will be an area I'm looking to short, but I'll have to be mindful of wicks. So that's what I see on the weekly. It looks bad, and we now have this head and shoulders that I've been talking about. It's now confirmed. Remember I said it needed to come down through this neckline to confirm. Let me rephrase that. It's not confirmed because it hasn't closed. But if price closes underneath this neckline, this will be a confirmed head and shoulders. And if you measure this head and shoulders price target, again, is right at, look at this, no coincidence, $4,100, which is the same place that this purple line is, that trend line, right? That's where that head and shoulders points to. So that, me personally, that's where my bids are sitting, and they have been sitting for a long time for my spot Bitcoin. Now, that being said, doesn't mean I won't cancel those bids, right? If it still looks bad when price gets close to that area, I'll cancel them. The reason I have them sitting there now is because if we get some kind of crazy tail that slides down there, right, I want them to fill. And that might seem unlikely, but I don't mind telling you guys that a few weeks ago I nearly got paid in a huge way because I had bids sitting down there and price had some kind of weird, I don't think it actually got there, but it said it did on the API. The day that Coinbase went down for a few hours, when they came back up, supposedly price had slid down to $4,000 on a split second. My bids didn't get filled because when Coinbase went down and they came back up, they erased everybody's orders, which was bullshit. But imagine if my orders had been sitting there, right, had filled at $4,100, and then 5 minutes later, price was back up to like $8,000, right, or $8,500, whatever it was, right? I could have literally doubled my money in minutes. So that's the reason that I leave bids sitting down there, even though I'm not actually trading on those exchanges. I do all of my trading on just Kraken and BitMEX. And the reason I trade on Kraken and BitMEX is because they both have leverage, and that allows me to keep a very small amount of fiat. So weekly, there it is. Daily, we talked about it. Just looks like, this thing's got a long way down to go before it finds its bottom, okay? I want to be very clear that there's people talking about Bitcoin. Oh, is Bitcoin dead? Is this the end of Bitcoin? Was this the bubble? Was this the top? Who knows, right? I have no idea if this was the top. I'm not ready to say that this was the top. I'm not ready to say that Bitcoin will never go back up. I just think that this was too much too fast, and the market is going to correct. It's a little echo bubble, right? You had a whole lot of people who were in the market through 2017. They lost money in the bear market, and I think they just got over exuberant and thought we were going to new all-time highs and got stupid, right? And created another little mini bubble. But you have to remember that, in 2014, it had this false rally too, right? And it came down, and yes, it did make a lower low, but it still went back up after that. So best case or worst case, depending on how you look at it, yeah, we might come all the way down to this $1,300 area. Might retest this old high back here. We could even come down and retest the 2013 highs, right around $1,100-$1,200. It would not surprise me at all if that happened. Okay, but if it happened, I'd still be interested in buying Bitcoin if nothing had changed. Right? The fundamentals haven't changed. This is the crazy thing about Bitcoin, guys. This is how you know this is driven by greed and fear, not reality. The fundamentals for Bitcoin are stronger now than ever. Okay, I'm not saying that it can't die, but what I'm saying is price doesn't dictate whether it lives or dies. Okay, it doesn't. People will say, well, the miners are going to capitulate and there won't be no miners left. Okay, guys, you have to understand how mining works with Bitcoin, okay? And I'm not a mining expert, right? I had a mining farm, but I was mining Zcash and I was mining alts. It's not exactly the same, but essentially the way it worked with altcoins was the more people mining, the more competition there was for the mining rewards. The more competition there was, the higher what's called the difficulty. The higher the difficulty, the less money you made. So for example, when I set up my Zcash mining farm, the first month that it was up and running, it was mining more than a Zcash a day, right? It was like 44 Zcash a month that I was mining. By the time I shut the farm down, the exact same equipment was mining 4.2 Zcash per month. It had dropped by 90% because so many people were mining Zcash. So it was not profitable for me to mine anymore. But guess what? When Zcash dumped in price, most people, like me, quit mining Zcash because it wasn't profitable for us. The difficulty rating went down, and the people who could still afford to mine Zcash, who have cheaper electricity or whatever, suddenly they were able to make money with it. Bitcoin mining is going to work the same way. If some of the miners go offline, that hash rate is going to drop, the difficulty rate is going to drop, there's going to be less competition, the algorithm is going to adjust, yada, 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 and it will still be profitable to mine Bitcoin. It will just be less people mining it. Again, all these fundamentals are being built around cryptocurrency. So it's less likely to collapse now than it was 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, this thing collapsed all the way down to $100 a coin, and it still lived, right? Still made it. Back here, when it got down to $3,000, a lot of miners shut down. Didn't change anything. Bitcoin went right back up. So again, I'm not saying that it has to go up. I'm not saying that it'll go to all-time highs or anything like that. What I am saying is I don't think it's going to die, right? It could be that when Bitcoin is all said and done, that somehow it gets down here, and maybe it just moves like this for years to come, right? We don't know. But here's the thing: even if it gets down here to $1,000, just say 1,000 for easy math, even if it only goes back up to 5 or 6 grand, guys, that's a 5 or 6x return, right? I don't give a shit how high it goes. If it's passing out hundreds of percent in returns, that's not going to die. People are still going to trade that, okay? So got off on a little bit of a tangent there. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this video up. Please remember that I'm literally some guy sitting in a spare bedroom. Nothing in this video is financial advice. Nothing in this video is trade advice. You should always do your own due diligence and seek out professional investment advice before making any type of investment in cryptocurrency. If you enjoyed the video, please be sure and give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. And don't forget, you can check the description for links where you can follow me on TradingView, Twitter, and also where you can join my free Facebook group. This is James with Crypto Common Sense. Trade safe.